Going beyond the headlines.
They break down the big story.
Today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Joining me once again is Santiago, or James Guzman, American-born writer, insurance broker specializing in non-conventional or unconventional markets and countries, founder of the Borderless blog and podcast at borderlessblog.com, jamesguzman.com, and if you're in the market for health insurance, borderlesshealthinsurance.com. What's going on, Mr. James?
Hey, Hrvoje, how you doing? You back in Mexico yet?
Nope, still not yet. Mexico. I want to be front row for the show, here near closer to Ukraine when the nukes go off. Have you marked yourself safe on Facebook from the earthquake? What's the news on the earthquake in Mexico?
It sounded pretty bad, but it was far away from me. So there was nothing here. I didn't feel anything. So right where I'm at, right in the center of Mexico, it's usually, they don't ever have earthquakes here, but it's usually down, around the Acapulco area and stuff like that. And I think that was in Michoacan and other areas like that. It sounded like it was pretty bad, but where I'm at, nothing. So
I think the casualties were very minimal, no?
Yeah. I went when that big one happened in Mexico City. When was that? Had to be 7 years ago now. And I went there. I went and got a GoFundMe, and I just had a bunch of my friends and family sending me money. And I went there and I just bought a bunch of food and tents and all kinds of stuff. It was quite an experience. I made a video about it. That was pretty fun.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. And I had completely forgotten this, but apparently this was the third time an earthquake happened on September 19th, which is really weird. Is this HARP, geoengineering? What's or just coincidence? I mean, it's just, I've got no explanation. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I don't either. No, I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's weird. Anyways, good thing that there's minimal casualties. I hope my home is okay. They've said some infrastructure buildings have suffered slight damage. I hope I don't come home to a collapsed home.
Really.
Something interesting that's going on. I'll probably need to get someone that's more well versed on this, but. And one of my past TNT guests who's involved in this, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting his name now, Fox Green, I think. And there's that Hinckley guy. But basically it's trending now, MAGA communism. So you saw this. So it's like the right wing and the left and the communists coming together in a sort of populist movement where there are things that there are common areas of agreement. I guess I would classify myself as not MAGA, as well as not communist, and so I wouldn't get on board with this. I could see, like, for a split second, my knee-jerk reaction, the initial appeal, because what we're up against is, you know how it is in war. Enemies can come together to fight a bigger common enemy, the globalists, but. I think this is just going to be a passing fad. I don't know. What do you make of MAGA communism?
Yeah. So there's a YouTuber who's getting to be more popular. He's a young guy, and I think he's of Arab descent or something. But his name is Cav or something like that, and he was the one that coined this because
it's not Jackson Hinkle, or you're thinking of someone else.
No. It's another guy. His YouTube channel is called Infrared, and his name's like Cav or something like that. And I can't really tell sometimes if he's like just trolling or if he's serious, because he's like really animated. But he describes himself as like a tanky. He's like an actual Stalinist apologist. And he came up with this because what he was saying is that. People like him and Jimmy Dore and Jimmy Dore also had a little segment on this MAGA communism that basically, they need to get together with the working class, and that's the MAGA people. And I just, that's first, like you said, first of all, MAGA and communists together sounds like my worst nightmare or something. Therefore, cutting taxes, land reform, reindustrialization, reduce work week, nationalize big tech, protect free speech, abolish the CIA and FBI, end foreign intervention, leave NATO, drill oil and go nuclear, literacy movement, patriotic education, subsidizing gyms. All right. So, I mean, this is just like populist stuff. I don't think that's really communist. You know what I mean? Yeah. Jackson Hinkle. That's him. That's the guy. He's been pushing this. But anyways, I think it's just kind of a grift, or so, I don't know what they're doing with this. So,
I mean, there's, as you just listed stuff, that a lot of stuff that makes sense, but I don't just see. I don't know. It's really weird.
Yeah, and another thing is, I mean, I like Jimmy. Like, I listen to Jimmy Dore, and and he's saying like you can't start any type of movement by just saying, oh well, if you like guns, you're out. If you like entrepreneurship, you're out. If you're if you're this and that, and that basically Democrats are just like cutting out most of their people, especially the working class. But I think that he's also all these guys are underestimating like the anti-white attitude of communists. I mean, maybe they're not, but pretty much all of the left and the regular, even just populist left. I mean, they just have they're against any all the foundational stuff of the United States and Europeans in general, and so I don't see how that could really catch on.
No, but I think what's going on here is you've got a segment of, Jackson Hinkle. I've heard him say I was kind of taken aback on that, because when I was listening to him, he sounded like a conservative, sort of Steven Crowder MAGA patriot, and then apparently he's a socialist. So he's a patriotic socialist. Yeah. I've never heard that before. It's kind of weird, because you always think socialist, communist, left wing, but then it's like I've never heard a socialist use that term, patriotic socialist. It's interesting, but I think these communists that would be involved in this movement are a type of not so crazy communist, like a more rational leftist. You get what I'm saying? Like the kind that I have on TNT when I can. That some of them are anti-Malthusian. They're anti-Great Reset. Right. They're anti. They get what's going on. They're anti the official COVID narrative. So I think these are the communists that would join the MAGA communism. And so maybe this is something, there's a new movement going on. Like, this is the type of stuff that happened in the 60s and 70s, no?
Right. Well, I mean, if you talk about like people that know a bit about Marxism and stuff, I mean, a lot of, especially the original Marxism, I mean, they were not about taking away gun rights from the working class. And they were, for a lot of different things it was all about, class struggle. And I consider whatever you want, the progressives now, I mean, they're not even, I don't know what it's just like goofy. They have a goofy, silly ideology that, they defend big pharma, they defend the FBI. And there's this just like, like AOC and Elizabeth Warren types. It's just stupid. So I think these are people that are more talking about like economic Marxism stuff, but I mean, that's stupid too, but at least it's a little bit, makes a little bit more sense than what the so-called a lot of progressives are in the United States. Like the Democrat Party is just weird. I mean, probably the weirdest and most goofy ideology, I think, in the world ever.
Just for fun, I wanted to talk about Mexican food for a split second. I don't know if I've brought this up before, because I'm missing now Mexican food. I've been away for a long time, and when I think about it, my favorite Mexican food are basically simply quesadillas con carne, like quesadillas with meat, or basically tacos with cheese, with some nice guacamole, salsa, or spicy salsa, and they've got onions you can throw on top, or even pineapple slices. What's off the top of your head, James? What's your favorite Mexican food?
Oh man, that's one thing that I definitely like about Mexico is the food. Have you ever had birria?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan because it's very like I like stuff that's more has less liquids. That's sort of a drier plate.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of birria. So if people don't know, birria is it's usually made with goat, but it can be different things, and it's almost like a stew, and really good spices and stuff in there. I really like that. But I mean, I like most of the stuff. Fish tostadas and tacos and stuff. We eat all that.
I remember a story. It was like a decade ago or more when I was in Mexico, and with friends. And Friday night we went out to eat at some local, Mexican typical restaurant. And I ate more as a younger man. My appetite was bigger, but at the time I ate 7 enchiladas, which was like a huge amount. Wow. And there were like 20 of us, and I was the only foreigner there. I mean, I was with all Mexicans and friends, and the waitress comes delivering everyone's food, and she's carrying this plate with 7 enchiladas, and she says out loud, she's like, "Who ordered 7 enchiladas?" like surprised, like who's gonna eat 7 enchiladas? And I just like raised my hand slowly, like me, like I'm a big guy. Come on, what's the big deal? Anyways, turning from a lighter note to a more serious note, Putin has mobilized 300,000 Russians, and it's starting to look serious now. What's sort of your reaction to from Mexico hearing about this escalation in the war between East and West?
Well, to be honest, for a while I haven't been sure what to believe about what's going on there, because you hear so many contradicting stories. So I usually just like wait and listen to several different points of view and then try to make a decision a little bit, because there's so much like tip of the moment news that I just can't even believe it anymore. You ever get that feeling?
Oh yeah, I also have been waiting, and I don't pay so much attention to the daily grind and just sort of wait for longer term markers, in terms of events, whether it's financial or political or military. Yeah.
What are you from the people that you've been talking to? I know you talk to a lot of experts and stuff. What has been the like lately? Because they say that now, I don't know, last week that Ukraine started to go on the attack, making it sound like Russia was losing. What's been kind of the consensus of people you've talked to?
I mean, my thought at the moment is more like just my gut feeling is, this is not, it's not good. I mean, even, just on Telegram, where I spend a lot of time, Doug Casey, who's been my guest on my podcast, and Matt Smith, who works with him, they're down in Uruguay. I was briefly chatting on Telegram with Matt, and he was posting something interesting where he's also of the idea that, what's the word, that what's going down is, I mean, this is serious business. And I'm getting a gut feeling that we're on it's the 1930s again. I mean, I think we're going to see major military conflict, and maybe it won't happen this year, but we're edging more and more towards it. We John Pilger, the famous Australian British journalist, was tweeting about, alluding to that same feeling that he has, talking about evoking World War I scenario. And so, I mean, I think it's really getting serious, and I think it's time for me to get back to Mexico.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't sound good, but at least I'm not in the military anymore, so.
We're too old.
And
so
I'm in Mexico.
Yeah, it's good that we're too old now. But I saw you also post, AMLO has come, the Mexican president AMLO has come out yet again with strong comments against the military-industrial complex and what's going on in Ukraine, no?
Yeah, let me see if that's a good point. Let me read that. He said, on the one hand, NATO denies Ukraine membership so I'm sorry, for those who weren't following, this is AMLO, this is president of Mexico, and this is a quote that he said. He said, on the one hand, NATO denies Ukraine membership in the alliance, and on the other hand, they offer her weapons and impose sanctions against Russia. This only exacerbates the conflict, adds to the suffering of victims and refugees, exacerbates food and energy shortages, and accelerates global inflation. It is impossible not to suspect that this war, although it seems perverse and incredible, serves the interest of the military industry. So yeah, that's pretty strong words. And, he had some pretty strong words for Big Pharma too. So if he's some kind of like controlled opposition, he's pretty...
believable.
Yeah, right.
What did he say about Big Pharma recently?
Anything not recently. This was like a year ago. He was talking about the boosters, and he said that, they just keep wanting to come out with another booster, but this is just a trick from the pharmaceutical companies to get them more money. He said that.
Although he did sort of flip-flop later, he has been, sort of promoting or pushing DARPA gene therapy. I don't know how busy you've been changing the diapers, James, but what's interesting in Mexico or the Americas?
Well, I mean, the biggest story in this has been, people have been talking about the last few days, has been the whole migrant situation. So evidently, they've just released the numbers, and there has been over 2 million arrests or immigrant encounters this fiscal year so far, and that's the most that they have ever on record. So this problem with people coming over the border is only increasing, and I'm sure everybody's heard now that they've been kind of whoever came up with this. I guess it was Governor Abbott from Texas, and then Arizona, and now Florida. They're shipping these newly arrived migrants all over the country to Martha's Vineyard, and I guess outside of Kamala Harris's house, and to Biden's beach house, and all this type of stuff. I
haven't been following it so closely because the whole migrant stuff is not really my shtick. I'm not that interested in it. I mean, it's important. I just kind of tend to look at other stuff, but from what I saw, that obviously these liberals, these white woke liberals who cry about minorities and racism, they're not putting their money where their mouth is. They get shipped these people, and they're like, "Get out of my face, get out of here." And there are some great memes. That Homer Simpson meme where he sort of backs into the bush and disappears. And there's one where Simpson's holding the sign that says, all that woke stuff, BLM, racism, minorities. And he's slowly backing into the bush to disappear. And he reappears with a new sign that says no trespassing. That's like the Martha Vineyard people. And I'm like, it's funny. I'm a conservative, and I haven't really had problems, but people will say, they will attack people like myself being racist. And I'm like, well, I actually went to Mexico over a decade ago before a lot of this stuff. And I literally became a Mexican, and I live in a working class, middle class Mexican neighborhood surrounded by Mexicans, no foreigners. I'm like the only foreigner there. And just like, come on, put your money where your mouth is. Come down to Mexico.
Yeah. And the thing is that most of these people, they're not even Mexican anymore. It's a lot of Venezuelan and Nicaraguan, other places like that. I'm trying to find it. I can't remember.
Well, did you hear the story though about Venezuela? I read Breitbart had an exclusive. I guess that Venezuela was emptying its prisons and sending those people to the States.
Oh shit! No, I didn't hear that.
So yeah, there's that.
That's not good.
Yeah.
But so there's a thing about Venezuelans is that because of the they cannot they can stay in the U.S. So like they're the only ones. I think there's some special relationships, like the same thing with Cubans too. That as long as they make it to the States, then they can just stay there. But that's not the case with the other migrants. So.
Well, let's talk about, because you messaged me about this. Lara Logan, the famous journalist who has a source, she says, in the UN. And it's funny because before you sent it to me, I had seen just a snippet of her interview. I think it was with Steve Bannon at the War Room. That what she said was exactly what I've been saying with you on this weekly program for months, and with Jose Nino as well as my other weekly regular, and probably like for a decade I've been saying it, because I've been teaching at the top globalist Mexican university, the Tec de Monterrey. I had a course called North American Scenarios, and I had a whole presentation on North American Union. The students probably thought I was a crazy conspiracy theorist, but and again, Robert Pastor, the father of the North American Union, Council on Foreign Relations, he's published a book, North American Community. He's visited the campus where I used to teach. I've seen him in person multiple times. And I believe I had the last living interview with him. He passed in 2014. You can find that on YouTube. But my point is, I was telling you that it wasn't the goal, to send up the migrants to the U.S., to dilute national American identity, and to bring down U.S. living standards. And the interesting note, Lara Logan said that they use the cartels to push and pull, so to create chaos, insecurity in Mexico, Latin America, to force people to go into the U.S., and then they want 100 million people to go into the U.S. What's sort of your reaction to that?
I mean, I don't know. I could see, whether that's the logic of the theory, but I don't know how you would prove something like that. Yeah, 100 million. I think that they've been saying 11 million illegal aliens are in the United States. They've been using that number for feels like 20 years. That was made off of a study that was kind of sloppily put together, but who knows how many? I mean, if you got, it sounds like, from the numbers that I've been putting out here regularly, I mean, it's thousands a day, at least getting stopped or, coming across the border. So who knows how
a number that I have from some years ago that I just recall was, I think, closer to 30 million. If I haven't looked up to, I haven't looked at the most recent data, but what is it, 330 million official population of the U.S.? I guess I'll look at that right now. Mm-hmm. But I think, maybe 30 million could be illegal. Anyways, 100 million seems like it would take a long time to happen. But I do. But her source was someone in the UN, in the government. So, I mean, I think that is the plan. I don't know how long it's going to take, but again, her pointing out that the cartels are used to create that, that implies there's a link between U.S. intelligence and the cartels somehow, and probably the Mexican government. And since forever, I've been trying to figure that out. There's not much data on that, but we've had Gary Webb, Rick Ross, and I think I've had on Osvaldo Zavala. He's been on the TNT show as well to talk about that. But I was also going to ask you on a more positive note, I guess, going back to real estate. There was another story on Mexico News Daily about a Seattle-based startup creating online listings portal for Mexican real estate. It's talking about U.S. vacation home prices being sky high, people being priced out of that, and then again just more people looking to Mexico. And being in Croatia, I realized the same thing. Where I am in Croatia is the number one hotspot in all of Croatia in terms of construction I mean, it's crazy. People are buying like hotcakes. Properties here, it's nuts. You have to get on a waiting list to buy apartments and homes. It's just absolutely nuts. And it feels just like Mexico. Mexico is, let's say, developing third world country where everything's lower cost of living. We've talked about that forever. And Canadians are fleeing to Mexico, buying urban, rural land, apartments, beach homes. Some are just living there and staying in the Chapala area and whatnot. Same thing's happening in Croatia. It's like the Western Europeans and Northern Europeans with money are coming to Croatia, where it's more affordable for them. It's $100,000 for an apartment, or starting in Croatia, and so you see the similar dynamics. Any further thoughts on real estate in Mexico?
Yeah, I don't. So here where I am, it's always been pretty popular for a place for foreigners to buy. I mean, for decades. There are definitely some very expensive, multi-million-dollar houses all over the place, and they've been building up a lot more kind of the private gated type of neighborhoods. The pool and gym and stuff, and they're pretty nice. And so I think that a lot of even the the nationals, as the middle class is growing in Mexico because of they actually have, like, they make stuff here. And so, people have jobs, at car plants or airplane plants, stuff like that. And they want to live in nice kind of middle class area as well. And so they've been building a lot of those lately, and all kinds of things like that. But yeah, there's definitely been a lot of that. And I'm actually I saw that article as well. I was thinking about contacting those people because I noticed that they don't have anything here in San Miguel. So maybe I'll see if I can help them out or something.
And they say that there are prices on their listings for homes in Mexico. Prices range from $100,000 US to $3 million US, and that just made me think of where I live in Mexico. In the space or span of a 30-minute drive, like where I live, you can find homes starting from $20,000 US to like $2 million US. It's so funny. Like, just in this short driving distance, you've got everything. The lower end to the extreme high end. Like, you drive further out of the city, they've got they call it Infonavit. That's like the government credit they give, and I think the houses were like 400,000 pesos. It's like $20,000, probably more at this point. But those are on the outskirts of the city. And then the closer you get, it gets to 100,000 US. And then 5 minutes down the road, there's this super high security gated community. I've been there. I've been invited by people to visit their homes, and they're $1 million homes. And people have this image of Mexico like, third world. I mean, you've got very wealthy Mexicans like this. I've had I've mentioned before, students that have had private jets. I mean, they were mocking my car. I had an old, like, 20-year-old car. They called it the Mama Mobile. Some of them can't come with like military Humvees and Lamborghinis, and so I mean, there's this side of Mexico too, no?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, where I live, there's all kinds of beautiful mansions and stuff. I mean, I think just off the top of my head, the most expensive was probably like $6 million, somewhere around there, that I know of here in town. And but for the most part, though, since this isn't really like a working place, it's investors or retired people are the ones that buy. It's not like CEOs or people like that, because nobody's really doing that kind of work here. This is more of a tourist town.
All right. And I did find the U.S. population. I think I was right. It's 335,000, the official. And I think you could possibly add 335 million. And you could add, I think, maybe possibly 30 more million. You get of illegal people in the U.S., so maybe like 360. Maybe to step away from Mexico for a second, Gustavo Petro, the president of Colombia, I think at the UN recently has been calling on Latin American countries to end the war on drugs. It's not in the article that I found from Reuters, but I did hear some commentary somewhere that he may have been alluding to even legalizing cocaine. We touch on this from time to time. And I don't really see a problem in attempting to legalize even cocaine and stuff like that, because look, what we have now is not working, and bodies are just piling up everywhere. And myself as a Christian, I would tell other Christians, like, well, that sort of fall into that category, that typical standard category of like, no, you can't legalize drugs. Well, would you rather have so many people just being murdered every day in front of your face? And what's worse? So, what are sort of your thoughts on this potential trend in Latin America?
I think it's great. I hope they do it. I didn't really understand. I know that AMLO, he said they were finished with the war on drugs, but it didn't really mean anything in practice. So, but yeah, I think it's a positive movement. So maybe MAGAcommunism is good after all, huh?
MAGA, yeah, that's interesting. I did have on TNT Luis Armendariz, who studied at the Tech where I used to teach, and he's interesting. I mean, people can go back in the archive and listen to that. He's working as a lawyer, consulting and all this stuff with this firm in Mexico, and they're involved with the legalization of cannabis in Mexico. And one sort of sobering comment that he made was that it's actually going much slower than you think. So, we've had this idea that, it's happening quickly, but it's actually a very slow process. So if it's going really slow with cannabis in Mexico, then I can only imagine all this other stuff. And something else that caught my attention, again, I'm following the Great Reset, the advance of the Great Reset in Mexico. People can check out my interview with the Leakmans. The Leakmans. Actually, you hooked me up with the Leakmans, Daryl and Susan. I had not long ago my second 2-hour interview with them. They've gone in ghost mode. They've nuked their socials and YouTube channels, so that's interesting. But in Jalisco, where I reside normally, sometimes, now they're rolling out for public transport. You can pay with your cell phone. So it's really accelerating. This is great. And sometimes I don't even take my cell phone out. So if I'm out and about and I don't have my car or something, I can't take public transport because now you pay with your cell phone. They don't accept cash. This is pretty crazy because I don't want a cell phone. How am I going to travel? Do you have any thoughts on the digitalization, QR codization in Mexico? Do you sort of see it around you sometimes?
Not at all. Here, no, everything is cash. That's why we were talking about, because we have a Freedom Cell here in town, and Catherine Austin Fitz, and I think Corbett also, they talk about, well, let's have Cash Fridays, or where everybody uses cash. And it's like, well, everything's cash. There's a cash economy here anyway. So they're doing that in Guadalajara, that to ride public transportation, you have to use your cell phone. It's
actually called Guadalajara City Pass. I think you can still use a card tap or something.
Oh, okay.
Or you have like the digital pass. I guess you load up on your account on your public transport digital pass. So you can still, or you can go to OXXO. That's like the Mexican 7-Eleven. That's literally like on every corner in Mexico. But now they're just adding the cell phone option. So yeah, again, I just see that's just because that's part of the Great Reset, smart city project. So yeah, that's what they're doing in China with a social credit system. So
I've heard from some people that say that the social credit system in China is not as advanced as a lot of us think. That's kind of like a scare thing, but it's not what a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. But I tend to err on the side of caution. I would rather freak out a bit more than sort of just be relaxed and then have it sort of, sneak up on me, the whole social credit thing. But I don't know. Sometimes I get tired of being such a black pill doomer. And even today, I had this in the afternoon. This thought, like, you know what the heck? I'm just gonna start using these apps and enjoying enjoying the benefits of using all the Rappi, the Uber Eats. I had that thought today. Like, I'm tired of being a doomer. Let me just embrace, the social credit system. So, anyways.
Well, I mean, I've kind of done that. I mean, I understand, we talk about all the things and, the direction things are going, but I mean, I have an iPhone and I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff. So, I mean, I just kind of like, I know it's a good idea to not be putting, I don't like post where I am or like anything like that, but it's hard to, I actually avoided it for a long time. I didn't even have a cell phone for the longest time. And then I just kind of said, oh, well, it's hard to be a caveman these days. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And speaking of hard to be a caveman, just another interesting story came out a day or two ago. Nestlé is creating the first all-private 5G in Latin America with Ericsson, Claro, Embratel, the latter two being part of Mexico's América Móvil. And so now they're starting to create private 5G networks. I think there's something to this. But, I mean, apart from that, I haven't really seen in Mexico news about 5G. I know the government of Jalisco, where I am, the state, they are rolling out like a public or government internet infrastructure. I don't think it's quite 5G, but and it's funny, the internet that I have is faster in Mexico than it is in Europe here where I am. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, they're putting there's 5G on one side where I'm at. So they are kind of rolling it out. I know it's probably all over Guadalajara. I know it's all in Querétaro and all these different areas, the larger cities, but I think there's only like one tower on the other side of town where I am.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out on that. I got to get more 5G people on. And, what else is interesting? We were supposed to have the My Latin Life guy on today. He'll be on tomorrow. And maybe in the future, I'll have him on. We'll have a threesome where all three of us can riff on just expatriating and living in Mexico. But, we got 3 minutes left to midnight. Any other thoughts about anything, or even in the U.S.?
I've seen, people that want to talk about the eat the bugs stuff. There has been some articles coming out talking about all these like the grasshopper farmers down here in Mexico. So like there's a long history of people in mostly southern Mexico, Oaxaca and stuff like that have grasshoppers, and they'll even eat other bugs and ants and stuff like that. And so I've seen that. There was an LA Times article and stuff like talking about how, we should all do this, and they're going to start making hamburgers out of grasshoppers and all kinds of different things that they're going to be using. So little by little, they're starting to get the bugs, eat the bugs narrative is still rolling out.
Yeah, I mean, I was arguing with someone on my feed that they're like, "Oh, well, we've been eating bugs for a long time. There's nothing wrong with that." Well, I'm like, well, there's a difference between. I've had crickets in Mexico on my pizza. Okay, it's like once in a blue moon. There's a difference between eating, crickets as they do in Oaxaca or Chiapas or something, versus not being forced to not eat meat and replace completely your daily consumption of meat with insect burger patties. I mean, it's just some people are ridiculous. And I did catch one more interesting article. Mexico's vehicle manufacturing market could match China. NAFTA's trade deals and fewer restrictions mean Mexico could stand tall during the manufacturing migration. So again, that goes to what we were saying, I think, the previous week, that with energy and otherwise, Mexico has a lot of promise in terms of economy still, despite the security situation. Again, James, what's the best place to find you on the internets?
Yeah, everybody, hit me up, jamesguzman.com. You can, if you want a consultation, if you're thinking about going abroad, or borderlesshealthinsurance.com if you're looking for international health insurance, property insurance in Mexico, all that kind of stuff. So thanks for having me on again, and I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Hasta la vista. We'll be right back after the break.